Welcome back to another episode of Murder, Mysteries, and More. My name's Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications.
Before we get into those cases, we always encourage those who have useful information for any unsolved case to please report it to your local police and sheriff department. Abraham Lincoln is one of the most well-respected presidents of the United States. With that being said, today's video will be covering the life of Abraham Lincoln and his assassination.
Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809. He is the 16th President of the United States of America. He married a woman named Mary Todd Lincoln, and they had a total of 4 sons. He used to work with a man named William Berry and running the Lincoln Berry General Store, where he had to sell stocks, unfortunately due to business struggles. Lincoln held 4 terms in the Illinois House of Representatives after fighting in the Black Hawk War. He supported Henry Clay. Henry Clay is an American politician who didn't like the idea of slavery. Abraham ran for the Illinois 7th District seat twice in the U.S. House of Representatives. The later attempt was more successful. He worked with Joshua R. Giddens on a draft bill to abolish slavery within the District of Columbia. He was a prairie lawyer, which is a country lawyer who handled cases such as Heard versus Rock Island Bridge Company. And Abraham Lincoln won the presidency in 1860, receiving a whopping 39.8% of the votes in a 4-way race between him, John Cabell Breckinridge, John Bell, and Stephen Arnold Douglas. Upon winning his presidency, it wouldn't be long before the first Confederate states adopted the secession from the Union, which eventually spiraled into the American Civil War.
Dun dun dun.
And a lot of blood would be shed.
Facts. Without this man, we'd still have slavery, probably. Which is so sad. Now into John Booth, which is the man who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. He was born on May 10th in 1838 and had 9 siblings. Damn, his mom's coochie was putting in work. Sorry, I had to say it. He was the known assassin of Abraham Lincoln, and he made his debut on the stage at the age of 17 at the Baltimore Charles Street Theater. He became popular among the audiences, with critics claiming him to be the ideal man, George Alfred Townsend, even being elevated by his older brother Edwin in a play of Hamlet. He accidentally got shot in his hotel in October of 1860, which was a near-death experience he'd ever faced. He supported the Confederacy and called the secession heroic. Being sarcastic, of course. He gained the reputation as the pride of the American people, and John T. Ford, a family friend, would open up the Ford Theater, which was the place where Booth killed Lincoln. After making his final appearance on stage on March 18, 1865, he moved to the oil industry. This venture of his, originally called Dramatic Oil, would be renamed to Fuller Farm Oil, backing off of Edwin Drake's oil discovery within the area. Booth would sell shares with a prospectus, which is a financial security for potential buyers, and people who bought were impatient and tried the use of explosives, boom boom, to boost production, which would ultimately end production, because they're stupid.
Yep.
Big oof.
Booth's attempt to kidnap Abraham Lincoln. As the Civil War continued to worsen for the Confederacy, Booth got angrier with Lincoln, who he blamed the Confederacy's troubles on. Booth deemed himself a coward due to him promising his mother he would not enlist in the Civil War as a soldier. Of course. Booth...
God damn it. Borf.
Booth deemed himself a coward due to him promising his mother would not enlist in the Civil War as a soldier. Booth originally wanted to kidnap Lincoln and smuggle him across the Potomac River into Virginia, where Lincoln would then be exchanged for Confederate prisoners of war, and potentially forcing the Union recognition of the Confederate government. Booth convinced two of his friends, Samuel Arnold and Michael O'Laughlin, and John Surratt, to assist in the kidnapping. Booth had spent 10 days at St. Lawrence Hall, and it's a place for Confederate secret services, but no conclusive evidence has been linked to the kidnap plot to any conspiracy. After Lincoln won the re-election in 1864, Booth increased the amount of energy and cash spent on the kidnap plot. Booth argued with his brother Edwin to the point where Edwin denounced his younger brother that he was no longer welcome to his home at New York. He was very jealous. Booth attended Lincoln's inauguration, saying that he had a chance to kill him if he wished.
Well,
so you hate him, but you're gonna show up to his inauguration? Okay.
Bruh. Weird as fuck much?
And then the kidnap plot was executed on March 17th after learning Lincoln was attending a play, Still Waters Run Deep, at a hospital. The plot to kidnap Lincoln did fail, and as Lincoln made a last-minute decision to attend a reception at the hotel Booth was staying at instead.
Oof.
That's rough.
Yeah. Failure.
Critical failure.
Emotional damage. But on to Ford's Theater. April 11th, 1865. Booth attended Lincoln's impromptu speech that he gave at the White House. Booth vowed to kill Lincoln after learning the president wanted to grant suffrage to former slaves. When Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered, Booth changed his plan to assassination. Booth told Louis J. Weichman, a clerk who was a chief witness for prosecution, that the only play he wanted to do was Venice Preserved, which flew over the clerk's head. Venice Preserved, if you don't know, is about an assassination plot, so, that really went over his head, fuck. Booth immediately started making his plans after receiving news that Abraham Lincoln and his wife, Mary Lincoln, would be attending Ford's Theater alongside the Grants. Booth made arrangements with 4 people to help him in his attempt. The 4 people were James W. Pumphrey, who provided a getaway horse, Lewis Powell, who was to assassinate the Secretary of State, William H. Seward, George Astaroth, who was to assassinate Vice President Andrew Johnson, and David Harold, who would assist Booth's escape to Virginia.
Lincoln's assassination. Booth was hoping to decapitate the Union government by killing Lincoln, Seward, Johnson, and Grant. Grant declined Lincoln's invitation due to his wife's persistence. Henry Rathbone and his wife accepted the invitation after the Grants' decline. Many thought Booth made a spy hole into the presidential box to confirm that Lincoln was there. However, later on they discovered it was said by the son of Henry Ford that it was a spy hole meant for the guards to look in. On April 14th, Booth entered Ford's Theater one last time at 10:10 p.m. after intermission. Booth slipped into Lincoln's box at around 10:14 p.m. Booth shot Lincoln with a .41 caliber Derringer pistol. Rathbone almost thwarted Booth's escape, but was stabbed. Booth jumped from the box and shouted in Latin, "Sic semper tyrannis." In English, this means "thus always two tyrants." Other accounts also added that he said, "I have done it, the South is avenged." Witnesses report Booth injured a leg by snagging it on the U.S. Treasury guard flap.
Okay, what a fucking idiot.
He is an idiot.
Yeah. But Lincoln's unfortunate death, after being shot by Booth in the back of the head, he's attended by Dr. Charles Leal, Dr. Charles Taft, and Dr. Albert King. The physicians continually moved, forming blood clots to pour excess brain fluid and matter to relieve pressure. Relief pressure. He was taken to Peterson House, where Lincoln remained in a coma for 8 hours before passing on April 15th, 7:22 a.m. in 1865. Rathbone had escorted Mary Lincoln to Peterson House, where he shortly after passed out from blood loss. And the individuals in the room included his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, his eldest son, Robert Todd, Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner, General Henry Wager Halleck, General Richard James Oglesby, General Montgomery Cunningham Meigs, and the Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton. Edwin Stanton, who was Lincoln's war secretary, said, "Now he belongs to the ages." Lincoln was put into a flag-wrapped coffin in a hearse and escorted by Union soldiers to the White House. Johnson was sworn in later that day. Lincoln's death would negatively affect Rathbone's mental health over the years due to his guilt of not stopping Booth. Poor guy.
Pursuit for Booth. Booth made a getaway on a horse given by Edmund Spangler alongside accomplice Harold towards southern Maryland, which was known by Harold to predominantly hold Confederate sympathies. Booth and Harold stopped to have Booth's leg treated by Samuel Mudd, who was told Booth injured his leg by his horse fell. The War Department advertised a $100,000 reward for information leading to the capture of Booth and accomplices. Imagine that amount in today's money.
That's a lot.
The nation put a great negative light on Booth's name. Abolitionist leader Frederick Douglass called the act an unspeakable calamity. Robert E. Lee expressed regret for Lincoln's death. Booth read newspapers reports and was aware of the arrest of several of his co-conspirators. Booth was surprised to see little sympathy for his actions even in the anti-Link newspapers. I don't know why he's surprised about this, because he killed a president.
Like, bro, you think you were gonna get some sympathy? No.
Even if people are on the same side as Lincoln, still, like, if one of our presidents were shot, like, it'd be a big deal.
Yeah, to everybody. Yeah.
Booth and Harold had accidentally rowed upriver of the Potomac River, where Colonel John Hughes provided shelter for them until they attempted to go downward again. Entry from Booth's diary. With every man's hand against me, I am here in despair. And why? For doing what Brutus has honored for, and yet I, striking down for a greater tyrant than they ever knew, am looked upon as a common cutthroat. End quote. Booth and Harold made it to Virginia on April 23rd, where Thomas Harbin took to the William Bryant, who supplied them with horses, who were then led by William Jett to the Garrett farm. Both were taken in by the Garretts under the alias James W. Boyd. Despite them not knowing of Lincoln's assassination, Booth later on revealed his identity and planned to reach Mexico to the Garretts when they learned of the assassination, noting they would not turn him in unless money was needed.
They should have turned him in anyways.
They should. It's a $100,000 reward, and also it's the right thing to do.
I'm getting my bag. Fuck you for that.
Right, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do. But on to Booth's death, which he fucking deserved. I'm sorry. But Lieutenant Everton Conger, on Booth's case for a while, tracked a jet and interrogated the location of Booth out of him. On April 26th, soldiers reached the Garrett farm, where Conger gave Booth and Harold the chance to surrender. Only Harold did, because Booth is a pussy. Booth refused, stating, he is a bitch, stating, "I prefer to come out and fight." Soldiers set the barn on fire to draw Booth out. Sergeant Boston Corbett shot Booth, with Corbett saying that Booth had raised his pistol to shoot at them. Booth was fatally wounded in the neck and dragged from the barn to the Garrett house. Booth died 3 hours later. The bullet had hit 3 vertebrae, and the last words that Booth ever uttered were useless, useless, after repeatedly whispering, "Tell my mother I died for my country." He did not. He died a coward.
He was a coward. Like, Abraham Lincoln actually died for his country, but Booth, no, you died for...
your selfish reasons.
Yeah.
Wow, 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 wow. Conger recommended that Corbett be punished for disobeying orders to take Booth alive. Edwin had written to his sister, Asia, of Booth's death to tell her to not think of him as their brother, but as the boy who was left. Asia had a letter given by Booth to be opened in case of his death, and this letter had said, I know how foolish I shall be deemed for undertaking such a step as this, where on one side I have many friends and everything to make me happy. To give all seems insane, but God is my judge. I love justice more than I do a country that disowns it, and more than fame or wealth. This letter would be taken by federal troops alongside other family documents. Co-conspirators Powell, Harold, and Azardot were hanged, rightfully so, along with Mudd, Spangler, Arnold, and O'Laughlin, who were sentenced to life imprisonment in Fort Jefferson. Mudd would be pardoned by Johnson later, followed by Spangler and Arnold. Surratt would be released on bail after a mistrial voted 8-4 favoring not guilty, which is bullshit.
Whether you actually shoot the weapon or you're just an accomplice that provides help, you're still guilty.
Facts.
Assassination after effects. Rath would later be placed into an asylum within Germany for insanity due to his failure to stop Booth. Rathbone would kill his wife by shooting her and stabbing himself 5 times in an attempted suicide. Rathbone's children were sent to live with their uncle in the United States. Rathbone would spend the rest of his life in an asylum until 1911 when he died. Mary Lincoln suffered grief from all her children, but Robert died. She became more erratic in behavior and didn't handle money well. I mean, she had a pretty rough life, so. Robert Lincoln would go on to live a normal life as a lawyer with a strained relationship with his mother. He would later start refusing presidential invitations as he recognized he was in the proximity of 3 assassinations. Lincoln at the White House, eyewitness of Garfield at the Pan American Exposition when McKinley was shot. I don't blame him. I probably would not go back if I witnessed all that.
Definitely not.
Seward and Surratt went to live normally. Andrew Johnson would go on to serve as president for 1 term, then took a short break before returning to the Senate.
Rightfully so. That man witnessed it too. Yeah. But on to our infamous Reddit comments, and this one is posted by Butter is a Myth. Butter is not a myth, but
Butter
fuck you.
is real.
Butter is real. And it says, if Abraham Lincoln hadn't been killed in 1865, how would the United States of America be different today? This is a comment from Deleted. I think he would be less of a saintly image in the U.S. today. I imagine he would have gotten the Churchill treatment. And for those of you who don't know what the Churchill treatment is, Churchill was kicked out of office and replaced by somebody, so maybe, maybe not. People did like Lincoln, so.
Yeah, people did.
He seemed like a decent guy.
He did. And nobody's like perfect. Deleted says the South would be much better economically today. There wouldn't be much tension between the North and South either, and we would have likely had a much less violent and chaotic Reconstruction period. The South lost their best. I think that's supposed to say best friend, but it says best bride. In April 1865.
Yeah. And another deleted says why. Another deleted says because compared to Lincoln's plan, Johnson's and the radical Republicans wanted to be much more strict on the South, and Lincoln wanted to ease relationships back as quickly as possible following the war.
Even though he didn't agree with a lot of the Southern views, he still, was trying to not be so intimidating.
He was pretty fair on a lot of things,
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
He's trying to be more neutral, and I think that's really hard for some people to do, but it's a really good trait.
Yeah, he was just trying to help give people their rightful freedom, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it should have been an issue in the first place, but we're weird. I don't know.
Right,
we're weird white people.
You are for the so this is I'll post this one. But it's by Dweed Pywet Roberts, the chair that Abraham Lincoln was sitting in when he was killed.
Damn, that's a rough looking chair, my guy.
It is. It's been through a lot.
Yeah, right? I see that. Holy shit.
And then Lightbox Rad MD says at the Walter Reed Medical Museum in Washington, D.C., they had a tiny chip of Lincoln's skull on display in a glass case. Totally blew my mind. Like, it's one thing to visit somebody's grave or see stuff they own, but this was a literal chunk of Lincoln just sitting there.
That kind of is gross, but okay.
Yeah.
Miss O'Goop says, when I was a kid, I went to the house Lincoln died in across the street from the theater, and I remember thinking that was really wild. Edit. The room that he died in is pretty much as it was, and the bedding is there with his blood and brain matter on it. Okay. That's kind of gross. Alright.
Then X3 Big OX3 says, I barely remember going there as a kid. The only thing that I vividly remember is the blood-stained pillow display. I get, like, you want to show history, but I don't know
about that.
Yeah.
Loki Hulili says that they had rocking chairs in the theater, ? Breakfast Spears responded, not typically, however, Lincoln was a very tall person, so he didn't fit in the typical theater chair as well. To accommodate him, the owner of Ford Theater would bring his rocking chair into the box suite specifically for Lincoln. Well, I guess he died comfortably-ish.
Yeah, he was 6'4", so yeah, he was tall.
He was pretty tall. Back then, people were short as hell.
Right. Some people still are today.
Yeah, but it's not as bad as it was, I guess. Evolution. Question mark. Modinger77. This reminds me of the dude who created an Abraham Lincoln account on Yelp and gave the Ford Theater a 1-star review. Who did that? Why?
And then Sam WYZH says, sometimes I wonder how the South would have fared had JWB not shot Lincoln. IIRC, a lot of northern political leaders were angry at Southerners and wanted them to pay as a result of a costly war. Lincoln made it clear it wasn't going to happen while he was president. 100% believe if Lincoln would have survived this attempt without major deficits, the South would not be near as poverty-stricken as today. 40 acres and a mule would have actually been enforced in efforts by a lost cause. Confederate sympathizers would ring hollow if the South was prosperous post-Civil War.
I think it's still be the same regardless.
Yeah.
They're still gonna act the same but be the same.
Every legal vote. Okay. This is at the Ford Museum in Detroit. Been there, it's awesome. The bus that Rosa Parks was in the same museum. Most folks don't know this, but that was the bus that was sold by the city to some buyer, ended up on a farm, and the farmer had no idea of the history, left it on its anchorage, and it became dilapidated. Someone, sorry, I can't remember who, started to do a search for the bus a while back, eventually located it on the farmer's lot and bought it, restored it, and gave it back to the museum. That is a neat story. On to the next post. This is by Delina. What's your opinion of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the United States? Let us not talk falsely. He did a good job.
Or post-war mutant, the 16th U.S. president. Ah, that Abraham Lincoln. What? Starbucks fucked you too, LMAO. My mother thought The Walking Dead was about people trying to kill Abraham Lincoln.
Wow. Kasunek says, he's my second favorite president, just behind FDR. The Union was really a political clusterfuck during the Civil War, and I truly believe somebody less skilled would have made a coalition collapse. The Emancipation Proclamation, for example, was a masterstroke that understood how to balance moderate Southern Unionists and the European public in all one go.
Posted clown, the greatest U.S. president though deeply flawed. He was a conservative abolitionist and a gradualist who didn't think slavery was worth fighting a war over. Though thought black people were inferior to whites and flirted with the idea of deporting them all to Africa after slavery had been abolished. On the other hand, once the war was a reality, he was 100% committed to victory and willing to make abolishing slavery an explicit moratorium. He is flawed.
Gumpod says, to be fair, although it is extremely racist at face value in context, I don't think it's entirely black and white. If you read his entire speech towards freemen in 1862, he did not believe that the white populations in the United States would ever accept African Americans in its society, and that the only way that they could achieve liberty was having their own country. His point on acceptance were correct historically and are still correct to this day, as racial injustice is still common in the United States due to white supremacy. Although the idea is abnormal and thankfully never practiced, he didn't hold it because he hated blacks to the point where he didn't want to be with them. Getting the Grillington says, absolute Chad.
Damn. Chicky 5555551. Man was a solid hero, and I'm shocked they're trying to take down his statues and rename schools named after him. The man won the Civil War. Not to mention, while the South was trying their hardest to import as many Africans into the country, Lincoln was planning to deport them back home.
And they said, let's not cancel Lincoln, please.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's cancel somebody else who
deserves it.
Yeah, let's cancel Booth.
I mean, he's already dead anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Let's cancel Sewell.
That's fine with me. Fuck it. They're already working their way up there anyways.
Abraham Lincoln, 16th President of the United States, despite many challenges, led a life of strong integrity. Lincoln had many accomplishments. He wrote the Gettysburg Address, led Union into victory during the American Civil War, and ended slavery. Like him or not, he left a mark on U.S. history.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open because you never know who will be the next president.